If I were faced with this, I'd probably do what he's doing, is get the tax cuts in, stimulate GDP, get GDP to grow at astronomical numbers, 4, 5, 6%, and the expenditures then get a smaller and smaller portion of GDP. The revenue comes in, the revenue side grows as the economy grows, and it's much easier to fund this level of debt.
So where does that leave the equity markets going forward?
Growth, you gotta love it. And the equity market is telling us that that's what's happening, I think.
Yeah, I
And what
look
do
at
they
it.
do? The bonds are a two-edged sword. On the one hand, you've got these massive debt that has to be funded, but on the other hand, the debt shrinks relative to GDP, and expenditures rise. So the actual net deficit shrinks. I mean, if the debt stays the same, and he can grow this economy at 5%, he's doubled the size of the economy. That's another what, 7, 8 trillion in revenue. If you got an extra 2 trillion or 3 trillion in expenditures, and you got this much growth in revenue, you're actually in better position.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Markets and Madness. Tim and I today, we've had a couple of weeks off. We've both been busy, a lot of things going on. It's early summer. The first half of the year is behind us. How are you, Tim?
Hey, Fred, back from vacation and trying to catch up with the world.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. We've had bombings while you were gone. We've had the bunker buster, and you know,
Good stuff. And the Ayatollah's not done yet, right?
yeah, I don't
That's,
know who to believe. We've had Trump Musk wars. We have
yeah,
all these groups.
that's disconcerting, to say the
was talking
least.
to, I was talking to someone this morning about it, and I'm disappointed in the whole situation. I thought that Musk wasn't really going after Trump himself. He was more going after Congress and the lack of reduction in spending. But now it seems like they're really going at one another again, and it's going to be a bigger issue. And I don't like how this is shaping up.
No, he's talking about primarying or backing a primary for everybody who votes against this bill,
Right.
which is which is all of the Senate, all of the Republicans in Senate, like with the exception of, I guess, Rand and whoever else fought this thing. Um, and he's got the money to make a real difference. You know. Plus, he's got Twitter as or
X. Yeah.
X. Yeah,
He's got a platform. Yeah.
yeah. I'm hoping that when the bill gets passed and he sees the results of it, he'll have a change of heart, sees the benefit, because I, it looks to me like he's letting as they say, letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, and he seems to be uncompromising on the cuts. And I feel the same way. I mean, he looks like, I found these cuts. Now, what are you going to do about them? And the, you know, I don't think he appreciates Trump has a better sense of timing of what has to be done and when he can do it.
I don't know. I was on board with that for the first few months, but I'm starting to get, if you disagree with Trump about one item, you're his enemy forever.
Yeah, that's certainly true, and that's what stops you. But then again, Trump's the guy. When a rocket crashes, he says, "Good, we'll learn something from that." You know,
Well, Musk is.
Musk.
Yeah, Musk is that guy, right?
Yeah,
I just saw a tweet where Trump was talking to DeSantis, saying, Ron, we've had some issues in the past. We may have some issues in the future, but you're like blood to me. We'll never fall. But meanwhile, he was calling him all sorts of names during the primary and
yeah.
really,
Who was worse than Cruz?
yeah,
The
yeah.
father's an alien, and I mean, he
Rubio,
was
yeah. Little
Rubio.
Marco,
Yeah,
yeah. But it brings them back into the fold, I guess.
Yeah,
And through all of this, we've had the bombing in Iran, right? The Israelis, the U.S. bunker buster, or whatever that was, and the dollar is still, there's no safe haven for the dollar, continues to get sold off. And I don't know if that's just a function of this spending that's out of control. What do you think?
it's hard to say. I think the tariffs have got a lot to do with it. The real hit to the dollar seems to have come when he raised the tariff issues. Is that fair? I mean, I haven't watched it closely enough. I
Um,
think that the jury's out on where the tariffs are taking us.
yeah, I don't know specifically if that was the timing. I just look at it as one big bundle, and everything's just falling apart. And we still have stocks keep going up.
Yeah.
I think inflation, inflation, inflation. I think this is all part of the same thing. He wants the Fed to lower rates. He's pushing on Powell. I don't like the way it's turning out. It's not this. This is not the scenario that I had envisioned three,
Well,
4 months ago.
the economy's slowing down. We had called that, and I think that seems to be happening. Um, I guess where we may have gone wrong is we were banking on the Doge cuts,
Yeah.
and they didn't happen.
Right.
And he had to sacrifice. And one of the things, the Senate just passed the bill.
Right.
Uh, one of the things they got rid of was Medicare for aliens, for undocumented aliens.
Right.
And that was a big piece. But that said, he's got money for the border, he's got money for defense, he's got his tax cuts for the overtime, and there's a lot in the bill that's really good. So we'll see where it ends up and what it does for the economy. Um, it's still, I don't know. The stock market is loves it, absolutely loves it. So they're convinced the multiples are good. Lower dollar, they're buying stocks based on the lower dollar because the lower dollar is going to stimulate the exports, and that accompanied with a few tariff deals should benefit imports. So I think the trade picture turning around is a piece of this, but it really should benefit the dollar. So
Ultimately, yeah.
it's
I just
confusing.
think, I look at it, I think it's all stemming from the bill and at the watered down bill, and if spending continues and inflation continues, and it's just going to erode everything down. Bonds are still getting sold off. Bonds haven't rallied at all.
Well, one of the things we talked about, and I think still holds true, is Trump has changed his. We've got an echo here. Trump has changed his his approach, and whereas he was very concerned about the spending, what he's trying to do now is run the growth to the extent that it dwarfs the spending. In other words, make the expenditures a smaller and smaller part of GDP.
So
Shrink it
yeah,
in relative to GDP.
he wants to inflate the economy, inflate everything, and if he does it through inflation, he's okay with that.
Yeah, I get a little trouble with the wording of that, but I think I see where you're going. Put it a different way. I think he wants GDP to run at 5-6%, and therefore the expenditures are a smaller portion of GDP. So even the higher spending levels doesn't hurt because it's easier to finance, and it's a bigger part of GDP. His focus is on growth. I think he shifted the ball. Where he had everybody focused on reducing expenditures. Now he's moved toward bigger growth, and he's
And
less
is
concerned.
that because Johnson and Thune couldn't get the job done on their side, so he's got to
Well, he doesn't
give
have the
him what he
votes.
can?
He doesn't have the votes. You got the Northeast Republicans arguing about salt, and they dug their heels in on the salt deductions. So that went away. He's got a formidable bloc that won't support the taking the illegals off of Medicare, and I guess Medicaid too, federal portion of Medicaid. So he's had no choice. I mean, if I were faced with this, I'd probably do what he's doing, is get the tax cuts in, stimulate GDP, get GDP to grow at astronomical numbers, 4, 5, 6%, and the expenditures then get a smaller and smaller portion of GDP. The revenue comes in, the revenue side grows as the economy grows, and it's much easier to fund this level of debt.
So where does that leave the equity markets going forward?
Growth, you gotta love it. And the equity market is telling us that that's what's happening, I think.
Yeah. I
And what do
looked
they
at
do?
it-
The bonds are a two-edged sword. On the one hand, you've got these massive debt that has to be funded, but on the other hand, the debt shrinks relative to GDP, and expenditures rise. So the actual net deficit shrinks. I mean, if the debt stays the same, and he can grow this economy at 5%, he's doubled the size of the economy. That's another what, 7, 8 trillion in revenue. If you got an extra 2 trillion or 3 trillion in expenditures, and you got this much growth in revenue, you're actually in a better position. I think
If
that's-
inflation erodes away at that, where does that leave you in the end?
inflation erodes away,
At
Not
the
not the debt.
whole picture? Not the debt, but the expenditures, the value. I mean,
So you're talking about the deflator on GDP. Well, earnings still look good. The stock market is inflated then. Multiples grow, right?
well, to me, that's what we're seeing. I think, the market's looking at inflation, not necessarily pure growth. We're going to inflate. He's going to do everything he can to push the needle as far as he can, as quick as he can, blow up the balloon.
If I'm Trump, I'm looking at this saying, I can't control the spending. It's in the hands of Congress. I can do what I can, but I can't control the spending. The only thing I can control is get them to where they seem to be amenable, is change the tax laws, stimulate growth. So the only hope I got to get out of this is to grow my way out of it. And I think that's where he is. I don't think Congress has caught up with him yet. And I don't think really the media sees that either. I haven't heard the talking heads say that too much. But I think he's shifted his focus from
Well,
reducing
Besant has basically said it. Besant, I saw he was a rebuttal to Musk saying, he's only looking at one side of the picture, basically.
Yeah,
You know.
that's true. Besant has said that. Well, and he would be saying that because he's got to fund the debt. Unless he really shrinks the size of the Democrats' participation in this process, there's no way he gets a handle on expenditures. I mean, if he could, he would take the illegals off of Medicare. He would do that in a minute. His answer to that is to get them out of the country. And he seems to be successful in doing that. It's a quagmire. But, you can't run this debt and keep building it the way we have for the last 40 or 50 years and just expect to just sprinkle some fairy dust on it and have them go away. They're built into the woodwork here. It's part of the foundation.
Yeah, it's not going away. That's for sure. And no politician, Democrat, Republican, has the stones to cut spending in the key areas that need to be cut.
Well, let's focus on the electorate for a minute. What are people thinking? And if they see the growth, the economy growing, they're going to like it. They're focused on the debt because everybody's talking about the debt, and they see it in their tax burden. And if he improves the tax burden, he's got the electorate in his pocket to that extent. I mean, if we're right and the economy grows and spending stays at levels, so you're not taking anything away from anybody, he's basically bought the electorate. So you could get a big boost here. And the other thing that we're not paying any attention to at all is they're grilling these guys on the auto pen and what was going on in the last administration. And it's looking uglier and uglier and uglier. That guy, what's his name, Bernal, who was going to go to the subpoena, and then when he found out executive privilege was waived, he said, no, I'm not coming. And they have to subpoena him now. And that big fundraiser, the Asian lady, I think her name is Lee, she says he was the guy with the first lady who was running the White House. So he's running away from congressional oversight, and the Democrats are providing as much cover because it's going to give them a real black eye. This looks really, really bad. So we'll see how people take this as they come. It could give Trump more support in the end.
Yeah, but that really does remain to be seen. And you got, what's going on with the mayor's race in New York City.
Well, that's another thing. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because this guy needs a lesson in supply and demand. I mean, he really doesn't understand that supply and demand, excuse me, is the motivator for virtually all human behavior. He doesn't see that. And I don't think he's going to get elected. We're talking about the Democratic primary, and a lot of Democrats haven't voted. And what he did, first of all, he's anti-Semitic. And that's not going to help him in New York. And it's not going to help him raise money in the general election. And he's blatantly anti-Semitic. I mean, he's not somebody I want to talk to. The things he said about Intifada, he's horrible person, supports Hamas. I mean, God. So
the betting lines have him with like a 70%, like the money's going on him.
Yeah. So I guess I'm probably wrong about that.
And, I would have thought that the Republican Curtis, who's really been a son of the city ever since I can remember.
Comes from Canarsie.
Yeah, grew up where I was going to say where we grew up, Canarsie. Somebody posted the other day, we've had Adams's former chief of staff was a Canarsie boy. His mom lived across the street from us, right?
Yeah.
We've had, they said Schumer was involved in Canarsie and busing.
Yeah, I'm not proud of that.
No. And now you have Curtis, and Curtis has really been a son of the city for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, and he hasn't been that popular a candidate, although law and order has helped him. And the Republicans made a big showing in the last election. They almost snatched the governor. Lee Zeldin came close.
Right.
So I would say
That's
to you
upstate. That's not New York City.
Yeah, but that's the governor's race. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, New York City.
And
is
I think she's in.
AOC.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that Hochul is in jeopardy as well. But I could see a four-way race with three independents on the Democrat, with the Democrat, and then two other independents, Cuomo and what's his name, Adams.
Adams, Cuomo.
Yeah, so that could split the
Curtis can
Democrats.
split the ticket. All three of those can split the ticket, and this guy can walk away. And New York, I don't know if they're doing it in this election, but they have ranked voting.
Yeah, they did it last time too. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy could clearly win as the second choice amongst a lot of people, or the third choice even amongst people.
Yeah, it's a wild card. That's why I'm surprised to see the betting line where it is. I could see the Democrats splitting the vote three ways. And the Republicans, based on their recent last show and law and order, is a factor, and that's his strong suit. It's Lewis's strong suit. So
reading somebody last week about it, and he said, the last Republican mayor, what do you think about it, Rudy? Rudy wasn't the last because Bloomberg did it. He said, but Rudy won on the strength of Brooklyn and Queens. And Brooklyn and Queens is, for the most part, communist, Greenpoint and everything that's going on. So you can't really rely on Brooklyn and Queens anymore to get you where you want to be in the five boroughs. You still got Manhattan and the Bronx, which are going elsewhere, and Staten Island will vote conservative, and that's that. So it's going to be a very interesting race.
I don't know. I think that's probably a decent bet to take the odds. Sliwa.
The Polymark, I think it was the Polymark I saw this morning, 70% or 77%.
Yeah,
Matt Getz
that's,
put it up. Former Congressman Getz, he posted that. So, and as somebody I read this morning said, seeing what this guy Zoran has done and what he said, and seeing some of his interviews, your imagination is not big enough to consider how bad things could be in New York City.
yeah, yeah. He used the key words too. He said, the means of production. I want to control the means of production. And that's right out of the handbook. That
Yeah.
it's, he might as well be wearing a red flag.
Yeah, and that doesn't bode well for the dollar to me if New York City goes down.
That could be, that could be a factor, you know. I'll never
Yeah.
forget, I guess it was in the early 80s, and a bank in Ohio, a savings and loan in Ohio, had a run on it. And because they didn't have any guarantees, any depositor guarantees back then. They didn't have FDIC in Ohio. So I got short the dollar. And I remember somebody calling me, I was in Buffalo, and somebody calling me and said, why are you short the dollar? I said, this Ohio thing, I think it's kind of an impact. So he said, well, you know, it's just a small little savings and loan in Ohio. I said, yeah, I agree. But pick up the phone, call Switzerland, ask for any Swiss, and tell him there's a run on a depository institution in the United States, and see if he asks you for a bid for the dollar. And and it had an impact for not long, a week,
Yeah.
but it was a significant impact. And maybe New York has got them scared.
Yeah, about the next step where things could go. Yeah. Um, Trump and Powell, last time we talked about chairman of the Fed reports to Congress, doesn't report to the president. His term has got a year to go. Yet Bessent is saying we're working on a successor. We should have things worked out in the next week. So
Shadow
they're talking
Fed?
about, yeah, they're talking about a shadow Fed, which is not gonna calm the markets.
No, no, that's not good for the dollar either.
No.
But it falls into your inflation category
Yeah.
and steepens the curve.
Still got to be long gold.
Yeah, yeah, long gold. I know I sent you that article behind the paywall about, it was very positive about
Quantum.
quantum computers. The thrust of the article, it was a Morgan Stanley article. What I took out of it was it's not a competing technology to artificial intelligence. It's supporting technology to artificial intelligence, which is really one of the reasons I was so bullish on it. If you combine the two, you accelerate the impact of artificial intelligence. And they think it's profitable or it generates big revenues as early as the next 3 to 5 years. Whereas the reason those stocks got hit was when the guy from, was it NVIDIA, said quantum computers 10 to 15 years away before they're viable.
Right.
And that was the beginning of it. That was when they really suffered. So my guy and my group, the guy from the supercomputer, the inventor of the supercomputers, told me that he thinks it's much shorter time frame, and that's consistent with the article.
Mhm.
So if you got a 2-year, 3-year time horizon,
Good opportunities.
yeah, you could be looking into the next big AI move.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like they're looking at earlier, I guess it was about an hour ago, last time I looked at the markets. Dow was up big. NASDAQ was down big.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what, it might have been one stock in a NASDAQ that was
well,
pushing it.
Tesla's hurting it for sure. Tesla's down like 20 points.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm not really hitting on all 8 here, so.
Okay. All right. Well, it was good chatting with you.
Sure.
Good ideas. Stay the course.
I'll see you in, on the 4th.
2 days on the third, right?
3rd? Donald's thing is on the 3rd or the 4th?
So we're going to play golf.
I knew that. See you on the 3rd. Okay.
All right. So long.